So the offensive line is the key to the season. I don't think there's many people out there that are talking like the offensive line isn't the key to what the Steelers are wanting to do. We want to run the ball, number one, and we have to be able to protect the quarterback. I mean, every team has to do that, but it's been in question for Pittsburgh, and the preseason didn't help. We haven't been able to run the football successfully with the first offensive line for whatever reason you want to come up with. It just hasn't looked good. Um, but there are things I think the Steelers can still be successful. Let's kind of break it down a little. First off, the tackles have to be dependable. I don't think there's any ifs, ands, or buts about that. Look, Broderick Jones, I was just bitterly hard on the man last season because of effort issues. And the preseason game against Tampa, more effort issues. And there's so many people that say, come on, Big B, you're being too hard. Give them a break. And I'm like, why do we have to give somebody a break for effort? If you're making a physical mistake and somebody beats you, we can talk about why, but we can't talk about effort. Like, there's no getting around whether somebody's giving effort or not. And too many times, Broderick quits on plays. Like, he wants to block for 2 seconds and that's it. Like, the play's almost, or the play should be over by now or be done. Like against Tampa Bay on the touchdown pass, Broderick Jones actually stops, turns around, and looks while he's engaged to see if the quarterback has thrown the football. I'm like, what? Huh? Where do you do that at? So it's effort, and for a lot of us out there, it is effort with Broderick Jones. You know. Now I'm not saying his technique is great because it isn't. It's not great, but he can at least work on that part of it. Now, the guy is powerful and he's super athletic. You can't take that away from him. Don't want to take away from him because that's what he does really well. But the effort and the technique have to come along. And again, I'm willing to give him not necessarily a pass, but almost, okay, work on the technique because that can get better. With the effort, man, I don't know. It kind of is what it is. Doesn't have that mean streak to finish blocks, push somebody just right after the whistle blows. He doesn't seem to have that. He just wants to block enough and thinks that he's done. He has no, I guess, wherewithal on finishing blocks. And maybe that wasn't important to him. Maybe he didn't have to do that previously. He needs to do that in the National Football League. Um, and I know he's super talented. There's no doubt that Broderick's ultimately or ultra talented. He is. But at what point do we have to start seeing that on a consistent basis? Because if you don't see it on a consistent basis, they start throwing the bus word around. Now, it's a little early to be saying that right now, but I'm just saying, at what point, how long is the leash before the Steelers say, you know what, we missed? At some point, and hopefully starting week one, Broderick Jones turns this thing around, and he becomes an absolute monster. And if he does, good for that young man because he's taken a lot of flack from a lot of people, yours truly, especially. But I don't think it's been unwarranted. I think it's been fair. Moving on. Troy Fautano, the main thing with him, got to stay healthy. Got to stay healthy. And again, nobody blames people for being hurt, but I mean, best abilities, availability, he got to stay healthy. If he does, quite frankly, I don't even need to spend a lot of time on Troy Fautano. If he's healthy, I think he's the best lineman we got. He's a technician. He's a master technician. He keeps his hands strong. He keeps guys in front of him with his athletic ability. I think he's the best lineman. And that's saying something considering Zach Frazier's on this line. I think Troy's the best lineman we got if he's healthy. If he does that, the right tackle position should be fine. It should be fine. You move on to Zach Frazier. Look, I've said this a couple of times. I think that was the worst game that I've seen, this preseason game. Worst game I've ever seen Zach Frazier play. I mean, he looked bad. Bad snaps, getting manhandled in the interior line. And now, don't get me wrong, Vita Vea does that to people, but it shouldn't happen to Zach Frazier. And a lot of it was technique. But either way, I think he's going to be fine. We just have to hope that a sophomore slump doesn't happen. because I've been screaming his praises in the offseason that a sophomore slump, it doesn't appear that he's the type of person that would run into that. Read his own press clippings, think, hey, man, I've arrived. This is easy. He doesn't appear to be that type of person. So hopefully that was just a blip on the radar and we start to see the real Zach Frazier moving forward. Because that was a bad game against Tampa, but that's okay. It happens. And again, it didn't count. That's the main thing with Zach Frazier. It didn't count. But what I want to see him be is to be the leader. I want to start seeing him holding guys accountable, on the offensive line. I'm not saying you have to get in people's face and stuff like that, but you can hold people accountable in the meeting room. You can hold people accountable when you come off the field and everybody's looking at the iPads and trying to find out exactly what happened, on this play, that play. Be the leader. Aaron Rodgers has talked about his leadership skills. Well, be the leader of the line. Take control. Take control and just continue to get better. And if he does that, I mean, he was top 5 last year. How high can Zach Frazier go? How high can he go? So now Mason McCormick, look, the technique is all over the place. It's still all over the place. So it's getting better, though. I'm not going to tell you that it's not getting better. It is getting better. The one thing, and I've always said this about McCormick, you just can't teach motor. You can't teach anybody's motor. And this guy's got one, a crazy motor. So if he can just harness that and with some technique behind it, we got ourselves a good right tackle, or excuse me, a right guard. And I like his fight. I like his hustle. I like all of it. We just need to start seeing more fundamentals. I think he kind of gets hurt by offensive line coaching. We'll dive into that a little bit here in a second, but I think that's a little bit of it. But we need McCormick to be the guy. We need McCormick to step up and have a really good season this year. We just need that out of him. And then Isaac Siamalu. Look, there's a lot of people that say Isaac's done. There are a lot of people out there, a lot of Steeler fans that are saying, he's old, he's finished. And you might be right. You might be right. What I would say is Isaac was hurt last year. Remember, he missed the first 4 games. I don't think he was ever right all year. And I know he was hurt at the beginning of training camp this year, hasn't played in the preseason, but he's back to practicing. But what I would say as far as Isaac is concerned, if he can be healthy, then I think he gets back to what he was in 2023. Now, if he's not healthy, that's a problem. It's a problem for the Steelers. And so that's kind of what I'm looking at. We've heard some rumblings that the Steelers brought in Dalton Reisner, a backup guard that started a lot of football games in the National Football League. If the Steelers can sign him, I think they should. It makes sense. 29 years old, started over 80 football games, played last year, started 8 games, but he didn't come in until the middle of the year last year and came in and immediately started up in Minnesota. So he's got some experience, but Isaac Siamalu, if he's healthy, I think he's okay. But if he's not, it's a problem. It just is, people, because last year was not one of his better seasons, and he would tell you that. Opening up too much on his outside leg, just not having the power that he's used to playing with. I think partly injury, but I don't think he's lost it. I just think maybe the injuries have caught up with him. I hope not. I really hope not. And then let's talk about Pat Meyer, because you can never really have a conversation about the Steelers' offensive line and the offensive line play without talking about the offensive line coach. Look, Pat Meyer, for me, I don't like his technique. I don't like how he teaches pass sets and basically everybody trying to jump set people. Offensive guards not giving ground, want to immediately get on defensive tackles. And I get that aspect of it. Because again, the Steelers, it was feast or famine. They led the league as far as pass sets allowing, more time when it was time for quarterbacks to throw the football. They led the league. But they also led the league in the least amount under 3 seconds quarterbacks pressured, which I know that it's contradictory, but they did. I mean, well, hold on. They had the most time to throw, but they also had the least amount of time to throw. It's insane to even talk about something like that, but it was true. It was true. And so it's like, okay, well, what's going on? Well, it's pass sets. If I jump set you as an offensive guard and I get on a D tackle, I got you. But if I jump set you and I miss, you're immediately around me and in the quarterback's face. And that's where the Pittsburgh Steelers were last year. It has to change. It has to change. Give yourselves a little bit of an opportunity. And that's my whole thing. Maybe you don't have the highest win rate, or maybe that's the case. But if you can cut down on the amount of time that, hey, under 2 seconds to throw the football, the Steelers don't lead in that, well, then that's a good thing, ladies and gentlemen. And I think the Steelers you would hope they would take a look at that. Just give some ground. Give yourself an opportunity. But the feast or famine thing, to me, doesn't work. And it hasn't worked for the Steelers. And now you got a 41-year-old quarterback back there. You better do something a little bit different, to help. You got to do something different. So we'll see what happens. Is Pat Meyer the scapegoat, though? Is it his techniques? I think partly, yes. Or, and I guess that's a better question, do we think it's more, hey, maybe the guys just aren't as good? That's the one thing that Pittsburgh Steelers fans, we say quietly, like I'm saying quietly. Hey, we'll blame Pat Meyer, but maybe the guys just aren't that good. Something to think about. Something to think about. Let's go to the poll question, ladies and gentlemen. Poll question 1. How confident are you in Pat Meyer's ability to develop the offensive line into a top-tier unit? A, very confident. B, somewhat confident. C, neutral. Or D, not confident at all. And that would be the question, is like, who has he developed? He's in charge of developing Broderick Jones. How's that worked? Same thing, though, with Zach Frazier. I mean, you can't say no to Broderick. No, he hadn't developed him. But then turn around, well, Zach Frazier, he was just good on his own. That can't be true. Maybe it's both. Maybe it's a mixed bag. I don't know. I'll be interested to see what you guys have to say. I think I probably know, but I'll ask anyway. Make sure you put a 1 in front of your answer so we know what poll question that you are answering. Let's move on, people.